Her past once again before her, Theresa's memories returned in a blaze of fire. Oakvale was burning. She watched in silence as the bandits tortured her mother, then turned to her with questions of the missing boy. She answered them only with a stare, and so their leader sliced out her eyes.
Theresa's certainly a very interesting character that we've already explored a little bit in the Fable Lore Theresa Part 1 video. In this Part 2 video, we want to go a bit more into some theories beyond the pure knowledge that we have, and maybe try to connect some dots and look a bit deeper into what is her role, and is she, in this kind of morally relative game series, is she good or evil, or somewhere in between, or neither, or both? So we'll get started with our first fan theory, taken from Reddit from 3 years ago, posted by the user Loose Goose Shoes. And Loose Goose Shoes calls this the unifying theory of Fable. So we'll just get straight in. Basically, Loose Goose Shoes talks about how essentially basically that Theresa kind of starts to pull some of the strings from behind the scenes throughout games 2 and 3 in particular, and other ones there. So it starts with a popular theory that was based on a Shadow Court in Wraithmarsh, where some people had noticed that in terms of character models in the game, the only member of the Shadow Court who spoke had the same character model as Theresa, and Theresa is also the only character to have appeared in all of the games so far. So this led to an idea that Theresa might somehow have been possessed by the Queen of Blades, which was the leader of the court, or the most powerful of the court. And essentially, there wasn't a huge amount more at the time beyond the character model idea, but it turns out that maybe there is a little bit more dots that could be connected. So, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a few parts here talking about how she might not necessarily be fully possessed, but she could have already been some sort of incarnation of the Queen of Blades as well, as she was born with her gift rather than, I guess, granted it during her lifetime. Like, there was no specific moment where maybe she interacted with the court or received the power until after she already had it, because obviously even at the very beginning of Fable and Fable TLC, she pretty much predicted that the village of Oakvale would be attacked by bandits in her sleep the night before during nightmares. So it's sort of stated that her ability was already in her possession. So there's a sort of theory here that maybe she isn't actually possessed as such, but maybe she was born as sort of an incarnation of the Queen of Blades in some way or another.
Yeah, so Loose Goose Shoes does go on to kind of explain some of it, and talks about, and you'll probably see some of this in some of our other videos on Scythe and William Black, and being, we think, one and the same, and therefore being part of the same family line. So my suggestion on this one, I guess, so we'll go over a couple of other theories and then we'll probably rate them and talk about our theories. But theory number one is that basically Theresa is either the Queen of Blades herself, an incarnation of the Queen of Blades, or somehow possessed by the Queen of Blades. So we'll go on to another one, which is on the Fable Hero forum. This was a long time ago. This is before Fable 3 came out. So on September the 9th, 2009, by a user called Gaiden or Gaiden Guy 123, and says that proof Theresa may be evil and a theory on Theresa being the antagonist. So this is quite a long one as well, so we'll just try and summarize again. But essentially, what the user says is, starting with Fable, we know that she went from a girl who just got chocolates for her birthday from her brother, and then all the way to a powerful CRS. But something in the book, The Hero of Oakvale, it says the Hero of Oakvale took the Sword of Aeons, but that would mean he killed Theresa. This can't happen since she has been living for 500 years, or maybe they made it so that you could Choose either choice, and something might back it up, yet something will put it on the contrary. So either choice would be canon. And as we know, canon in Fable tends to be a bit loose, then loose and fast, rather than hard and in stone. And essentially, the theory or the post goes on from there to then talk about Fable 2 and how essentially Sparrow, as in the hero of Bowerstone, is trained by Theresa in the gypsy camp. But basically, it's not really known if Sparrow had stayed in the gypsy camp for all the years, from being a child all the way up to being sort of a young adult, and that he never went back to Bowerstone for all those years. So we also don't know if then Theresa had brainwashed him whilst in the gypsy camp, and she also had a guild seal from the start. So whose was that one? Perhaps was it the original hero of Oakvale's? Or did she have maybe another one? Or she must have one because she can then talk to Sparrow through it during the game. Or maybe her powers are already pretty strong at this point. During Fable 2, she does kind of manipulate Hammer, who was a monk. It was actually Sister Hannah originally to be the hero of strength, and Sister Hannah didn't want to do it, so she ended up basically conspiring to get Hannah's father to be killed, so she would have vengeance in mind. And there's also quite a bit of kind of oddness in some of the other things that happened there. But this was obviously the spire, the tattered spire that came about in Fable 2, which supposedly Lucian was creating in order to, I guess, make some kind of wish. I think it was in order to get his family back, perhaps. Whereas we knew that all along, Theresa wanted it for her own ends. I think it was something to do with getting her sight back or being able to control her powers a bit more, or at least that's what we know. But we also know that Lucian only knew about the tattered spire because he was visited by a woman in a red cloak, a hooded woman that he still sees in his dreams, that basically put that idea in his head. So I guess that's the summary of this theory in Fable 1 and Fable 2. Obviously, this one was written before Fable 3 came out. And we know from there, and from in Fable the Journey, and also in the short story of Theresa, that we talked about before in the previous video, she's definitely been pulling strings from behind the scenes for a while. So what do you think on that one?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of truth in this even before Fable 3 came out, especially because, as you say, in Fable the Journey, she does confirm at the end of the game to the main character that she did inform Lucian about the spire in the first place, so as to sort of gain his resources and build it back up for her own needs, whether those were nefarious or not. She doesn't really confirm. I don't think she had necessarily like evil intent, but she did cause the entirety of Fable 2 to happen from behind the scenes, simply for her own gain. So you know,
yeah,
there's definitely some suspicious things about her for sure.
So I think those are the two kind of, I guess, some of the two fan posts that I wanted to get us to go through. I mean, let's talk about our own experiences in the game. I mean, you probably don't remember a huge amount of Fable 2, so that probably summarized her involvement in Fable 2, right? But you remember the first one and the third one. So, all right, my personal theory, and I would like to hear yours afterwards, but my personal theory is that Theresa was Theresa. She was just a part of the Archon's bloodline, just like the hero of Oakvale. She started to have some visions, as some people with some willpower, maybe had. Maybe it was a deeper power, but it wasn't fully tapped into yet. And at some point, she went into the void. And I'm thinking it was when the hero of Oakvale possibly took the Sword of Aeons. Even if it was just for a brief moment, or the void maybe came to her in a brief moment, and somehow that's when the court, in particular the Queen of Blades, started to sink their claws into her maybe and change her a little bit. Because I think if you look in Fable 1, she's pretty normal, and then from Fable 2 onwards, she's different. She's very different. She's more plotting. She's more conniving. She's more scheming. What do you think?
Yeah, I think in Fable, obviously the time she spent with Twin Blade as well definitely changed her quite a lot from the childhood memories you have of her. Quite clearly, it's pretty much stated as fact that at first Twin Blade was the one protecting her, but after a while she was protecting Twin Blade. Like, it sort of became quite clear that she was the one carrying Twin Blade's camp rather than Twin Blade himself. So definitely there's some changes would have occurred there during her time with the bandits. And then again, with the whole Sword of Aeons and how it's considered canon that the hero did take the Sword of Aeons to defeat Jack of Blades. Yet Theresa is still alive in the next 2 games. There might be something there, like you say, perhaps when the hero of Oakvale took the sword, maybe that's what sort of allowed the void into her mind. Maybe the hero did strike her down with it and it sent her to the void, and maybe she gained the power to come back, maybe with the Queen of Blades' help. There's a lot of potentialities there that haven't been explored that would be definitely really interesting to see in future. I don't know, I think Theresa's definitely, like, she does have a very, very big change from Fable 1 to Fable 2. So I definitely
not least
think
there's obviously a voice actress change,
of course,
and then as we mentioned, the voice actress then plays her for the rest of the games, so every appearance after that is voiced by the same actress, whereas in the first game, now there's lots of reasons why that may be the case, but if we were to, rather than just thinking, maybe they didn't have the budget for it in the first game and then they had budget for it in the next games or whatever, if we put it into a bit of lore, is maybe it is almost a different person now, and she certainly seems to be, as I said, a lot more different. Whereas, like, in the first one, it's looking after maybe some form of revenge for the bandit raid and looking after her brother and, fulfilling, I guess, prophecy, if you like. Whereas it seems to be something deeper in Fable 2 and Fable 3. And, like, in Fable 2, she even put the magic box, the music box, into the way, and then encouraged Sparrow and his bigger sister to buy it, to do jobs to buy it, and like when they were going to walk away from it, not believing that it was actually magic. So it's kind of funny to see how she was like pushing things to happen, and just having a look at like the age of the people. So there's 3 characters that have this really old thing about them, right? So forget about Jack of Blades because he's from the void. He's not a human, or mortal being, I guess. So you have Scythe, who is like ridiculously old. He's William Black. He's thousands of years old at this point, or whatever it is. He's hundreds of years old. You have Reaver, who apparently gave basically his hometown basically up to live forever, more or less, didn't he? And then you have Theresa. And we kind of talked about this with Reaver's video, but there are some theories that Reaver might be the hero of Oakvale. And then there's this. Is there a possibility that those 3 are kind of the reincarnations of the court in their own ways? Is there a possibility of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think there must be some sort of link there. Even just going from, as you say, William Black or Scythe, quite obviously some sort of corruption or power. Like there's clearly a trade-off there for his immortality, because obviously he pretty much looks like a zombie, doesn't he? So there's some sort of trade-off there. In Theresa's case, there must be a trade-off as well. Obviously, she lost her sight as a child, but I think maybe she allowed the same type of power that William Black used to turn into Scythe to keep her immortal, and then obviously in the same way Reaver did by sacrificing his hometown to pretty much to the Shadow Court. I think it's confirmed it was directly to the Shadow Court. So again, there's some sort of link there with the Shadow Court to all of these 3 characters that could be that's how they're receiving their immortality.
Yeah, and we still don't know 100% confirmed that Shadow Court is the court, although I would be very surprised if not.
Yeah.
But there is like a a thing about, what does it cost you when you're up against these immortal powers, and it costs you everything. Maybe it costs you your soul, and maybe these three characters, Theresa, Reva, and Scythe, for example, they've lost their soul somehow. But definitely, there's a bit of a philosophy as well, is that, to paraphrase and to misquote, but kind of only just, Friedrich Nietzsche, when you look into the void looks back into you. And, I think these are three characters that have obviously had, things to do with the void and the other side. And as a result, maybe they have changed. They have been altered. I mean, Scythe is not the same as William Black. I mean, it's the same person, I believe, but he's not the same, is he? He's not this.
He's definitely not the same anymore.
There's something definitely different about him, isn't there now?
I mean, yeah, even if you just look past the physical changes, which are obviously the most apparent, he looks decrepit, he looks like a zombie, but even as a person, he's quite clearly changed. His motives have sort of not crumbled, but definitely receded from the sort of heroic figure he must have been in life, in this sort of undeath that he's received. He has his immortality now, but he doesn't have much of a drive anymore. You see him just protecting the sort of like northern wastes, rather than bothering with the guild or bothering with the rest of the world. It's not a problem for him anymore, in the same way that with Theresa, clearly she had an attachment to the hero of Oakvale, her brother, and had a pretty important role in stopping Jack of Blades in the first game. By the time of the second game, she's obviously undergone quite a large change. She's more, as you say, she's more conniving, she's more scheming, she's aiming more towards her own goals rather than towards the goals that may better the entire world. And I guess Reva, I'm not 100% sure, but it seems like he sort of always was a sort of more villainous character, but I guess his more lecherous side starts to come out even more as time goes on, because he's getting bored of playing the hero in some scenes and playing the villain in others. He's sort of just reached the point where he can do what he wants because he's immortal. So I think it changes everybody in that sense, and whether that's just their mind changing or some sort of influence from the void or from the court, we don't know.
Yeah, and I think at the end of Fable 2, once the final scene, once Lucian has been killed either by the hero or by Reva, and the spire is basically free, Theresa takes it, and we then realize that for the whole time she's just been trying to get the spire built, and to have it for herself. And what does she need it for? What is she doing with it? It was originally constructed to change the world, to change Albion in a way that we didn't know. So that's the big question mark, is what are her motives? My theory is I've got another theory which I would like to see expanded on. I'd like to see some appearances of her and some more explanation of her in the new Fable release. But there's the other theory that maybe she isn't part of the Queen of Blades at all. Maybe, as we were saying, she has been affected by either being in the void or looking into the void, but that she's also seen as a seer or a seeress. She's seen the state that the world can come to, and that she's now recognized that allowing one person to die to get the result that she wants for the whole world is a lesser evil potentially than letting the world come to ruin. And so she understands what the true cost of it is, a little bit like Logan in Fable 3, where he's not a popular king, he's quite a harsh king, but it's because he knows that the corruption's coming, and the corruption is a very real threat. And maybe Theresa's got the same thing in mind, where she knows that there's a corruption and coming as a threat, and she knows that it's kind of ends will justify the means.
Yeah, definitely that's the vibe I get in Fable 2. Particularly, she's sort of, I guess, manipulating everything from behind the scenes, but she does seem to act with the idea that eventually it'll come to a greater conclusion than what it would have if she didn't meddle. So maybe she's not entirely evil, or maybe she's not nefarious at all, and it's just, she can see that she has to make these sacrifices to get the best possible outcome. In which case, that sounds pretty believable as well. I think there's a lot of possible outcomes for Theresa's character, and I would really, really like to see it continued in the recently announced Fable project that hopefully sounds like it's going to be Fable 4, but I won't say Fable 4 just yet because we don't know that. I hope she makes a return in some way or another, even if it's just some obscure lore that helps paint the picture a little better. But I'm definitely hoping for an actual cameo from Theresa in some way or another.
Yeah. Or even if it's just some information that we can have, some kind of backstory or some
yeah,
kind
like books or a mention of her. Just anything would be nice. But I definitely would love to see her actually implicated in the story in some way or another.
Yeah. And I guess the biggest question mark of all, and I think that she's one of the only two characters, because I think Reva's is a bit different, but her and Scythe, who are definitely part of the same bloodline, if Scythe is William Black, seem to have this ability to just live forever. And that's where there's this big question mark, is the hero of Oakvale couldn't live forever. The other Archons don't seem to be able to have lived forever. How did these two get it? And I think the unifying factor is the void. And so I think that the new canon has to be somehow she went into the void. So I think that the canon is that the hero of Oakvale chose the Sword of Aeons. I think there has to be.
Yeah, well, I think it's confirmed. It's definitely stated like the Sword of Aeons was used to defeat Jack of Blades. So in my headcanon, and this is obviously fully speculation at this point, there's not really any definite evidence to support this, but in my headcanon, I would say that the hero of Oakvale, either by being convinced by Theresa that it's the best idea to use the Sword of Aeons, or even if it was just by himself deciding to use it, he would have taken the Sword of Aeons, killed his sister with it, which would have sent her to the void in some way or another, and then used it to defeat Jack of Blades. Then, in the void, Theresa somehow gained the ability to come back as an immortal.
Same like William Black did.
Yeah, much like William Black. I think maybe she was sealed in the void by the sword rather than entirely killed, and maybe either she formed a pact with the void, or with the court, or with the Queen of Blades in the void. One of those sort of outcomes led her to coming back to Albion with the new immortality that she had gained, and obviously we don't exactly know what sacrifice she would have had to make for that, but as far as we know, everyone else who has immortality has made a sacrifice, so she must have made a sacrifice of some sort, and that's what led her to her sort of change once you reach Fable 2. That's sort of my headcanon.
Yeah, well, we know William Black only got out of the void by using the Sword of Aeons to get himself back out. So what I suggest happened is that a hero of Oakvale, so Jack in the game disappears when you drop his health down, and the Sword of Aeons is just there and the void is open. What I think happens is that Jack maybe drops the sword and you can then use it to destroy him, and Theresa says you need to destroy him, so like sacrifice me, it's fine, it's the right thing to do, you need the sword to destroy him, so you sacrifice him at your sister's request, sacrifice her, at her request, to then do the killing blow on Jack with his own sword, and then the void is still open, so you then throw the sword into the void, which closes the void, and then Theresa gets the sword to get back out of the void at some point, and so the sword must be back in Albion somewhere, and perhaps this game might expand on that a little bit. That would be an awesome theory to happen. But the sword is back in Albion somewhere, and maybe Jack is also, as you know, being this immortal, you can never actually fully just kill him. And so maybe he's still out on the hunt for it, and this is all about trying to stop Jack still, or the court.
Yeah, maybe. But I definitely think the prevailing thing here is, I think the Sword of Aeons was used to defeat Jack, and I think Theresa was killed with the Sword of Aeons to fuel it into its most powerful form. And I think you might be right. I think maybe the hero of Oakvale then did toss the blade into the void with Theresa, and maybe if she did use it to get back maybe she was able to leave it behind or something. Maybe or maybe if she did take it with her and hid it somewhere, maybe that's why Jack, if he reforms in the void in some way or another, perhaps he can't get back. Perhaps he's sealed in there because the sword isn't there with him. Maybe she, Theresa used her sort of oracle ability to know that this is the best outcome, and that's why she was able to convince the hero of Oakvale to kill her. Who knows? I don't know for certain, but yeah, I think this is definitely our sort of headcanon at this point. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I would love to see sort of an expansion upon it in the next Fable project, in depth rather than sort of in lore books.
Agreed. All right, and I think that's all we have on Theresa for now. If we hear anything from this new Fable release, or there's more once the game's out, on Theresa we will make a part 3, but for now I think that's it. We will have more Fable Lore videos coming for you on other characters, other places, other topics very soon.
Yep, and definitely keep an eye out for Fable videos, especially with the coming sort of information that we'll slowly be getting in the new Fable project. I think that's the sort of thing that'll keep us motivated to specifically focus on either Fable lore or just update videos on the state of the new Fable game. So definitely keep an eye out for that, and we'll see you when we get there.
Yeah, and let us know what you think. What do you think Theresa's all about? Let us know in the comments. If you had a different idea to us, we're keen to hear it. We by no means think that we're right, so let us know, and we'll be keen to look into it as well.
Your attacks will have no effect. Remember yourself. Your attacks will have no effect. Remember yourself. Your attacks will have no effect. Remember yourself.